All right, today's lesson is 6.3, and our objective for today is to explain and describe long division and synthetic division of polynomials. So we're going to learn two ways we can do this. Long division you can use in all cases. Synthetic division only works in certain cases. So our vocab for today is synthetic division and the remainder theorem. And so we're going to go over long division. If you remember back when you first did long division, let's say we took 12 and we divided it into 45,382. Okay? So remember 12 doesn't go into 4, but 12 goes into 45 3 times. 3 times 12 is 36, then we subtracted. We got 9. Bring down the next number. And so now 12 goes into 93 7 times. 7 times 12 is 84. So again, we get 9. We bring down the next number, 8. 12 goes into 98 8 times. That's 96. And then 22. So bring down the 2 again. And 12 goes into 22 once. And we got 12 with the remainder of 10. Then you could continue on with this by putting decimals, but the other thing we did was we said a remainder was 10, or you could write it 3,781 with the remainder over what we were dividing by, 10 twelfths, which would reduce to 3,781 and 5/6. So that was long division the way you originally learned how to do it. Now we're going to do it with polynomials. So let's take this example here and do it long division. I'll do it long division and synthetic. So long division is, again, you take what you're dividing by. And then we put. Now when it skips a power, you don't have to do this, but a lot of people like to put, okay, we don't have an x. And then we add the 10. You don't have to do that, it just helps with, place values as we go through this, and you'll see. So now you do just like you did with your long division. We say, what do we have to multiply x by to get to the first term here, which is 4x cubed? So from 1 to get to 4, we need a 4, and for x to get to x cubed, we need an x squared. Then we take this 4x squared, and you have to remember that whatever you put up here, you multiply by the whole thing. So we go 4x squared times x is 4x cubed, and 4x squared times negative 2 is a negative 8x squared. Then just like long division, you subtract this. But what I like to do so you don't get into this double negative thing, instead of subtracting it, remember we can change it to addition and change the signs and then add. So what should happen is these should be opposites and cancel out. And we go 3 plus 8 is 11x squared. If you left it as minus, that's fine. It would be 3 minus a negative 8, which becomes plus 11 also. And then we bring down the next part. Again, totally up to you whether you do this 0x or not. It just helps as we go through. So now we repeat the process and we say, what do we have to multiply x by to get to 11x squared? And that would be 11. And x to get to x squared. So 11 times 1 is 11. X times x is x squared. And 11x times a negative 2 is a negative 22x. Again, we're going to subtract, but we change the sign and add. And we get 22x plus 10. Then we repeat the process again. We say, what do we have to multiply x by to get to 22x? And that would just be 22. And 22 times x is 22x. And 22 times negative 2 is negative 44. Again, we have to subtract. So we change the signs and add, and we get 54. And that is our remainder. So again, remember we can put it as a remainder of 54, or we could write our answer as 4x squared. Let's put that. I can write it as 4x squared plus 11x plus 22 plus the remainder over what I divided by, x minus 2. So that would be doing it as long division. Now we're going to do the same thing with synthetic division. We can use synthetic division anytime we can write it as x minus c. Okay? If it's written in this form, so in this case our c is 2, and all you do is this. So let's, so you can see these side by side, and you'll like the synthetic division. All you do with synthetic division is you do, the c goes here, and we put this little bracket like that. So c is 2, so it's the opposite of what it says. And then we put the coefficients here. Now here it's really important. If you skip a power, you need to put in a 0. So we've got 4x cubed, so we put the 4. We've got 3x squared, so we put the 3. We don't have an x, so we put a 0. And then we put the constant 10. So you see 4, 3, we skipped, there's no x, so we have to put a 0, and then 10. Then what you do is you skip a space and you put a line down here. So here's what happens. You take the number in that you have here, and on this we just bring down the first number. So we bring down a 4, and then you simply multiply. 2 times 4 is 8, and that goes there. And then you're always going to add these two rows. So we get 3 plus 8 is 11. 2 times 11 is 22. 0 plus 22 is 22. 2 times 22 is 44. 10 plus 44 is 54. The last number is your remainder. And then it just goes constant, first power, second power, so I can write my answer, 4x squared plus 11x plus 22 plus 54 over what I divided by, x minus 2. And you can see that we have the same answer both ways. And you can see how much shorter this is. Okay? So this is long division. This is synthetic division. So let's take a look at another one. Let's try 15x squared plus 8x minus 12. And this should be divided by 3x plus 1. So, here's one. It's not in this form, x minus c. So there are ways we can do this synthetic, and I'll show you that. But a lot of people, if it's not in this form, just prefer to do the long division because there's some things that you have to do with this. But I'll show you both ways. So we're going to take long division, 3x plus 1, and divide it into 15x squared plus 8x minus 12. So remember, you start here and you say, what do I have to multiply 3 by to get to 15x squared? 3x. So 3 to get to 15, I need a 5. X to get to x squared, I need an x. Then you have to remember, you take this 5x and you distribute it to the 3x plus 1. So now I get 5x times 3x is 15x squared, and 5x times 1 is 5x. Now again, remember, you're subtracting this whole thing. So my suggestion again is change it to addition, change the signs, opposites cancel. 8x plus a negative 5x is 3x. Bring down the next part, minus 12. What do I have to multiply 3x by to get to 3x? Well, it's already 3x, so we just need to multiply by 1. So now I'm going to take that 1 and distribute it. 1 times 3x is 3x. 1 times 1 is 1. Again, we're going to subtract the whole thing. So I'm going to change the signs and add. Opposites will always cancel. And we get negative 13. So my answer is 5x plus 1 minus 13 over 3x plus 1. So that would be doing it long division. Now there is a way we can do this doing synthetic division. And that is we need to convert this so it's in this form. And the way I could do that is I could take that 3x plus 1 and I could divide it all by 3 and get x plus 1/3. Now the book, I would tell you, would take and divide this by 3. I like to wait until the end, so I'm just going to take this. So remember, the opposite of this goes in our little half box there. Now we put the coefficients, 15, 8, and negative 12. We bring down the first number, 15, and we multiply it. Negative 1/3 times 15. Well, 3 goes into 15 5 times. 5 times the negative 1 is negative 5. Now we add 3. Then we go 3 goes into 3 once, and we get a negative 1. And we get a remainder of negative 13. Now, here's what you do if you've done this. Because I divided this by 3, I'm going to divide just the numbers out front by 3. So if I divide those by 3, I get 5. Now remember, it's remainder, constant, first power, so 5x plus 1, and then minus 13 over what I was dividing by, 3x plus 1. And as you can see again, this answer is the same as what we got here. So it's possible to do this one synthetic. A lot of people, just because it's not in the form, they don't want to mess with dividing by this. So you have your choice. You can do synthetic on the whole thing by converting it. But everything you can do using long division. So a lot of you will like to do this. But we will want to do the synthetic because as we go on in the chapter and even on this assignment, it becomes real handy to be able to do synthetic division. So let's go through one more together. So now we're going to take t squared minus 3t and divide it into t cubed minus 7t squared plus t squared. So again, this isn't in the form x minus c because we have the t squared and the t, or it could be t minus c. So I'm going to do long division. So we're going to go t squared minus 3t and divide it into t cubed minus 7t squared plus 12t. So we ask ourselves, what do we have to multiply t squared by to get to t cubed, which would be t. Distribute that. So we get t cubed minus 3t squared. Remember, we're going to subtract this whole thing. So I change it to addition and change the signs. These will always be opposites and cancel. Negative 3 plus 7 is a negative 4t squared. And bring down the plus 12t. Now, what do I have to multiply t squared by to get to negative 4t squared? That would be a negative 4. So we get negative 4t squared plus 12t. Again, we have to subtract this whole thing. So I'm going to change the signs and add. Opposites cancel. These are also opposites, so I get a remainder of 0. So my answer for this is just t minus 4. Now, most people wouldn't do this synthetically, and some of them you can't do synthetic. But But this one, because t goes into everything, I could go ahead and divide this all by t and get t squared minus 7t plus 12, and this would become t minus 3. And then we can go ahead and do that synthetic. So it's the opposite of this, so 3. And then 1, negative 7, 12. Bring down the 1. 3 times 1 is 3. Negative 4. 3 times the negative 4 is negative 12. And so we get 0. Remember, the last number is your remainder. Constant first power. So this would be x minus 4. And we get the same thing. Actually, this would be a t, because it was t. But t minus 4. All right? So now, I'd like you to do this one on your paper, and I'd like you to try it both long division and synthetic. Now, when you do this with synthetic, remember, it's going to be the opposite of this. So go ahead and try that, and then you can check back and see if you got it right. So doing this, you should have gone x plus 1/2, 4x squared minus 12x plus 9. And so to get x to 4x squared, this would be 4x. 4x times x is 4x squared, and 4x times 1/2 is plus 2x. We're going to subtract this whole thing, so change the signs and add. And we get a negative 14x plus 9. X goes into negative 14x. I need to go by negative 14. And so we get negative 14x. And negative 14 times 1/2 will give you negative 7. Again, change the signs and add. And so we get 16. And so you should have had for an answer 4x minus 14 plus 16 over x plus 1/2. If you did a long division, it would have looked like that. Synthetic division, key is the opposite of this, so negative 1/2. Then our coefficients, 4, negative 12, and 9. Remember, you bring down the first number, you get 4. Half of 4 is 2. 1 negative is negative, so negative 2. Add, we get negative 14. Half of 14 is 7. 2 negatives is a positive. And so we get 16. Remember, the last number is your remainder. And so my answer is constant first power, 4x minus 14 plus 16 over what we were dividing by, which was x plus 1/2. And you can see the answers for both cases are the same. So on the assignment, you can do whichever you want. There'll be some that you do have to use long division to do. All right? The next thing that we're going to do is what's called the remainder theorem. The remainder theorem says if the polynomial function p of x, whatever that polynomial is divided by x minus a, then the remainder r is p of a. So what that means is, if this is our polynomial, our p of x, and it's divided by x minus a, now when you do this, this is saying for x equals 4. Okay? So that's telling us if we plug 4 in here, the remainder will be whatever p of a is. So we're going to plug in 4 in this case. So one way I can do it is I can plug 4 in, because it's saying p of 4, that's replacing the x. So that would be 4 cubed, which would be 64, minus 4 squared, which is 16, times the negative 4 would be negative 64. 3 times 4 is 12. And then minus 5, and so 64 minus 64 would be 0, and 12 minus 5 would be 7. So what they're saying is p of 4, then the remainder is going to be 7. Okay? But if you remember from our synthetic division, Okay? This is our remainder, right? So, we can go back and we can do synthetic division. But when you do this, since it's telling you x is 4, that's what you plug in. So now I'm going to set this up. So we got 4, and our coefficients are 1, -4, 3, -5. And so we bring down the 1. 4 times 1 is 4. 0. 4 times 0 is 0. 3 plus 0 is 3. 4 times 3 is 12. And we get the remainder is 7. So instead of plugging 4 in and having to use a calculator, especially when they get big to do this, we can just use synthetic division, and we can always find that value for the expressions. So this is telling us that the remainder is going to be what P of A is. So you can see here, this is our remainder. It's the same thing I got when I plugged 4 in. So it's another way to do this. Besides just plugging 4 in, I can go through and work it out. So let's take a look at this in the next one. So they want us to know, evaluate this for when x equals -3. So remember, when it tells you what x is, we don't do the opposite of that. Now we put the coefficients, 1, 3, and then you have to remember it skips the x, so we have to put a 0 in here. And now we just bring down the number. 1, -3 times 1 is -3. 0, 0, 0, 0, 4. Remember, our answer is the answer of what happens when we put in -3. So what they're saying now is P of -3 is equal to 4. Much quicker way to do that. Let's go ahead and check it and see if we get the same thing when we do this, which we should. So -3 to the third would be -27. 3 squared, -3 squared is 9, times 3 is +27, plus 4, -27 plus 27 is 0, plus 4 is 4, and so again we get the same thing. Just another way to do this. So that should have been example number 2 on your paper. You just plug it in and you find the value. So your assignment for today is page 426, numbers 13 to 31, the odds, and 39 to 47, the odds. Make sure you're careful. Big things are, when it is written, remember this way. When we do synthetic, we do the opposite of that. Also remember, when they give you the value of x, you don't do the opposite. You put it in there. And then again, the other key thing you have to remember is if it ever skips a power, then you have to go ahead and put a 0 in when you do synthetic division. So good luck on that.